Hello and welcome. My name is Wayne Mengesha, Artistic Director of Soul Pepper Theatre, and it is my great pleasure to introduce you to Daniele Bartolini, who is the director of Six Characters in Search of an Author, which brings us to Italy in our Around the World in 80 Plays adventure. Hey Daniele, how are you?
Very good, Wayne. How are you?
I'm good, I'm good. So this has been a crazy ride as we've had to move into our social distance version, everybody from home recording this play. How has it been for you?
It's been great. It's been something that I honestly always had like I'm very passionate about the sonic aspect of plays. So being able to work on a radio play on a like I love always limitations and not having the body of the actors but only the voice. I find it to be incredibly inspiring and important because it's almost like it feels to me that it's celebrating the primary instrument of the actor, that it's the voice. So we have this essential element, and what you can do with it is pretty much infinite. So it has been a fabulous process.
Yeah, that's a nice way to think about it. So let's talk about the play. This play was first produced in May 9th, 1921 in Italy. And now we are coming up on the 100th anniversary. And you grew up in Florence in Italy. And when you were growing up, what importance did this play have for you?
It's very funny that you're asking this question because as I was growing up, the way that Pirandello was always present, also in school, in university, mainly in school. And the way that it's taught, it's not that exciting. It's almost like they want to make Pirandello very conventional when it's not. So when you grow up, you kind of like consider him to be, boring. So I didn't have a huge interest till the point that I saw six characters on stage in Florence, in Teatro della Pergola. I was 20, 21 when I saw it, and then was boom, like a, a revelation of like what theater can be. And it's one of the shows that I've seen, not only the text, but the shows that I've seen live that really influence, I think, my pathway as an artist.
And so, how did you approach doing it yourself in this new contemporary setting?
I approached it as, I would say, as a visitor that visitates, another culture and another language. So I think the very first thing was that I didn't have the instrument of language, of my own language. And I find that to be incredibly interesting. So in the adaptation that we did with Luke Reese on this piece, there's been lots of care on familiarizing, with the language and how the things are translated. It's a bit of a privilege to be able to know also, the original uh, meaning that the author maybe had, when he put down on paper, the script. So it's been a voyage about trying to share this with the collaborators that, that are from another country and they don't speak Italian.
And what about just time and the relevance to, specifically what it's talking about? How was that? How was that for you? What was your entry point?
So I think Pirandello touches in a very codified way because he uses text in the end to do that. But it touches on something that I think I've always tried to navigate with my own work, which is, what is the system of reality and what is the system of fiction? And does it even exist? Or is it all blended together? And I think that in my work, normally the site-specific work, and the work that it's immersive and that happens in the city with some pieces of mine, it is this attempt about connecting reality with fiction on a very thin line and to blur the lines. And I think that Pirandello ultimately does this with this piece, because if we think about an audience that entered that theater in Teatro Valle in 1921, that's what they saw. They saw the behind the scene. The normal, you get to see what you normally don't get to see. You get to see an unfinished product almost, right? So this idea of reality and fiction, which is one of the eternal questions, I think it's what my gateway for this work.
And it's interesting because at the time, people didn't really appreciate that very much, that he wanted to dismantle and examine in that way. And there was not a very good reaction, right, originally.
No, it's very interesting. So it was a flop. So that's why I also think that it's so fascinating, because then it went on to be a text that is so well known, pretty much all over the world. And but it wasn't met with lots of excitement at the beginning. So then that leads me to think again, also, when we want to think about innovation, and like, it's not always welcomed, with applauses, but you need to be brave and to have the courage to, to affirm your idea, and then to defend your work, and then you can actually then create an exchange and create success, which is also what happened, right, later on.
And do you think there's still an element of disruption that this play provokes in this current moment?
I think that people now see it knowing, unfortunately, knowing the plot. So when you walk in the theater, especially, I've never seen it here in Canada, but in Italy, you kind of like, okay, how are the 6 characters going to enter now, right? There is a degree of originality of how you can have these characters coming from, maybe the foyer, from the street, from anywhere, from the change rooms, like anywhere in the theater. So there is the degree of expectation. There is that, right? There is, people know, unfortunately, what's going to happen. So there is not that freshness. But I think that, again, like Pirandello doesn't keep, reality outside of the room, really brings reality within the room. So that's what makes it universal and a classic in the end.
What about the whole process, being a part of the 80 Plays journey? What has that been like for you?
So it has been like something that I think it brings me back to when I arrived in, my experience about arriving in Canada in 2013, about what I was envisioning, what I was expecting, and then what I encountered. So originally, when you think about, Toronto, especially, from other places, you think that you are going to, the expectation was for me to arrive in an environment where, whether, in museums or, cinema, theater, mainly theater, because that's what I do and what I love, that was going to be incredibly diverse in terms of, the content of the art forms, but also like culturally, in terms of like the cultural background. So when I arrived, I was a bit surprised that it was not exactly the case. Then, being here after a few years, then I got to familiarize a bit with what, also Canada describes itself as a mosaic, which it made me think a lot about how it's a mosaic. So there are cells that are next to one another, and we all share the same space, but actually they're separate cells that, they don't blend completely together. So I think that this piece, it's something that actually speaks to that, and the possibility, of shining light on incredible, stories that come from, all over the world. And we're so lucky that we're in a city where this can happen, because it's such a multicultural city, and it provides also an opportunity, to unify and to blend these different cultures on one end, and then on the other end, a great process of discovery. So it really brings me back to my early days here, and to be an eager audience who wanted to discover what the city has to offer, and the richness of these cultures. Mm-hmm. So it's something that I wish that I encountered a few years ago, but it's happening now. So this is quite fantastic, and something that I love. Let me just say one last thing. I really love that it's a series, so you get to be a creator, and at the same time you get to be an audience as well. So I'm very eager to see what the other ones are going to be sharing, and I can't wait to be an audience now.
Well, thank you for bringing such a beautiful point on the journey. Thank you, Daniele, so much. Thank you for listening. If you would like to check out the whole play, please go to soulpepper.ca and check out 6 Characters in Search of an Author. Thanks so much. Thank you, Daniele.
Thank you, Winnie.
And we'll see you all soon.
Thank you.